Australia is about to have a referendum asking the nation whether we should constitutionally recognize Indigenous First People and constitutionally enshrine an Indigenous advisory body to Parliament. I reason that it should be rejected as dividing people by race in politics is morally objectionable. Am I right, and what is the moral argument? Look, I don't think the issue here is race, right? I definitely think this should be rejected. Indeed, if it isn't rejected, then to hell with Australia, right? I mean, Australia is in deep, deep trouble if it isn't rejected for many reasons. But look, what is the Constitution supposed to do? The Constitution is supposed to set the framework, the structure, and the framework for the law in protecting individual rights. It's supposed to treat individuals as individuals. It's supposed to protect them as individuals. It's a framework for coming up with objective laws to treat people as individuals. And this proposal is an abomination. It's abomination, one, because it rejects individualism. As you said, whether it's race or tribe or what it is, it is a recognition of collectivism, institutionalization of collectivism into the Constitution by recognizing these tribes as somehow having some kind of priority within the legal structure of Australia. Not because they've achieved something or not because they know something or not they have a particular insight into the protection of individual rights. No, but because they were there first. But the reality is, it doesn't matter who was there first. The only thing that matters in the law is the protection of rights. Now, you know, so even recognizing the Indigenous First People, whatever the hell that means, recognizing them, is an abomination. You don't have to recognize them because they're not peoples. They're individuals within the Australian nation. And the Australian nation is a successful, prosperous nation because of the achievements of immigrants who came there from the West. That's what made Australia, Australia. The first people would have never gotten there, certainly not in the time that has passed since, without the values injected from the West. And those are good values, superior values to the values of the first people. So it's a kind of a values egalitarianism, a political values egalitarianism, which is wrong. And then the idea of creating an advisory body to Parliament is absurd again and ridiculous. Just because you happen to be of a tribe that has its origins hundreds of years ago in Australia doesn't give you any insight into what is appropriate law and what is not appropriate law, what is right and what is wrong, what is good and what is bad, what is effective politics or right politics and what is not. So absolutely, this is a travesty, an immoral law, because I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for? This is the jet lag, right? It codifies collectivism into the Constitution. And it gives power to people not because of their deserving that power, because of the knowledge that they have, because of the value they contribute, but because of their tribal ancestry. I mean, the best thing that can happen to the first people is for them to completely assimilate into the rest of the Australian population and disappear as a tribe. That is true of the American Indians. The best thing that can happen is to become Americans. The best thing that can happen to the first people is to become Australians as individuals, not as members of a tribe. It'd be interesting if God, I wonder if anybody's going to flag what I just said for some retribution from social media. But yeah, I mean, the best thing that can happen to any tribe is to disappear, qua tribe, and for the individuals within that tribe to become and establish themselves as individuals, to identify as individuals, to live as individuals, and to participate politically as individuals. So, Justin, yeah, I think it's horrible. I think it's a moral travesty. I think I gave you the arguments. Let me know if you have any follow-ups on that. Justin, as a follow-up, the main argument used by proponents is due to colonialism, Indigenous Australians are uniquely suffering and are best placed to advise on solutions. Is there something to that? No. I mean, there's nothing to that. Now, I agree that grave injustices were committed against Indigenous people in the past. But there's only one solution to that. And that solution is to stop treating them as Indigenous people. The solution is to treat them as individuals and to integrate them fully as individuals into society. Now, I don't know the mechanisms in Australia, but in the United States, for example, that never happened with Indian tribes. What was done with Indian tribes is they were treated as tribes. And, for example, the land is not owned by individuals. It's owned by the tribe or the nation, as it's called. So individual Indians, American Indians, own nothing. The tribe owns it on these reservations. And they're treated, I did a whole show on this years ago, they're treated horribly. I mean, really, really horribly. It's one of the great injustices of modern times in America. People talk about systemic racism. Just look at how American Indians are being treated today. And the core, the essence of the reason they're treated that way is that because they're treated as a tribe and not as individuals. You know, they can't even make decisions as a tribe. There is a department in the American government that makes decisions for them. They're treated as children. It's, God, it is so disgusting. So the solution is to recognize publicly the great injustices they're committing. I'm sure there were massacres, land was stolen, you know, bad things were done by the settlers, and I don't call them colonialists, by the settlers in Australia to the Indigenous people. And that needs to be recognized and admitted to. But that's history. It's finished. It's over. And the question is, how do we move forward? And the only way to move forward is for them to take personal responsibility over their own lives and for the Australian government to allow them the personal freedom to do so without treating them as Indigenous, First Nation, or as a nation at all. Individuals protected under the Australian Constitution. Hopefully it's a decent constitution.